I am so thrilled, as always, to have a conversation anytime, any day, anywhere with David Random. He is an author, he is an artist, he's a former ad man, and he has fabulous stories. And I think that's what I just love about David so much. These are his books, all of his books. This is his latest one. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some of these other ones as well. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about Defying Gravity and other short stories from a long career in advertising. And this is the cover of the book. And, it's in pretty good shape. I've had this for a while, but I pick it up and it's like a sacred book to me. So I put it in a place where it doesn't get all gnarly and my coffee spills all over it and somebody else picks something up. But what I love about it is and what I love about David's books is that you can pick it up at any point and read the short story and I think you just get a good chuckle. Your humor is wonderful. So David, always good to chat with you.
Thank you, Kate. Glad to be with you again.
Let's talk about Defying Gravity. First, let's set this up. So giving birth to this baby, what was that feeling like?
Being in advertising for so many decades, starting in the late 1960s, when, if you've watched the show Mad Men, that's exactly like it was, very chauvinistic and crazy. And I was just so amazed at the things that I would see mostly behind the scenes in advertising that people never realize. And also some things right out front that were just astounding to me right out of college. And I just started keeping a mental note of all these things, thinking, oh, I should write these down someday. And that's what I ended up doing because it's such a crazy business. Not so much anymore. I think advertising has changed quite a bit since my retirement in almost 20 years ago now.
And what do you think has changed the most about advertising?
I think one thing is that it's, I think, taken more seriously now by not only people who create the ads, but also by clients. We had some clients who would push us over we'd reach the stop point and they'd say, oh, come on, go further. You can, and he'd push us over that line of either good taste or, something. And I think another thing that's changed, of course, is the advent of computers. When I started, we didn't have any computers. So you had to do a layout for a magazine ad with magic markers and do the type by hand. And then it would be mechanicalized. You'd have to send out to a typographic shop to have them set the type according to your specs and hire a photographer, of course. And that's changed so much. People shooting their own photos, obviously setting their own type with the advent of computers. And, there's just a lot that's changed. And TV commercials, for example, you can't skip over the commercials like you can now, when you record a show or something. You had to watch everything back then.
It's so clever that they do now in advertising because of that reason that you can skip over and people DVR things and they can fast forward through it, is if you're watching something live, they have the split screens and they have those short ads where you have to hit them with like 10 seconds. Yeah. So you got to be clever right out of the gate. No time 30 seconds is short, but can you imagine 10 seconds?
Yeah, that's true. Also, the product placement. You see a lot of TV shows where there'll actually be a product in whether it's a sitcom or what, and they'll actually name the product. It'll be part of the plot. And that's, product placement that gets paid for.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they get pretty big dollars for it, as you know.
Yeah.
So I made a list of some of my favorite, I like everything about this book, but I made a list of some of my favorite chapters, and some of them that I came up with is this one. How about this? God on Spaghetti. God on Spaghetti. Tell me about that. So at first blush, when someone sees that, God on Spaghetti, it's like, what is that about? I said that to somebody that I was talking to test it. I said, hey, what do you think about God on Spaghetti? And they just started laughing. What are you talking about? And then I told them about your book. So tell us about that little chapter.
We had a client that was an Italian pasta company, and they didn't advertise. A lot of products that you see in supermarkets do not advertise. They rely totally on their package. You know, you're walking down the aisle, that's their only ad. And in fact, that's how I buy wine. The big wine connoisseur that I am, I just pick out whatever label I like best. I like ones with animals on it. But yeah, the pasta company was Italian pasta. It was not made in the United States with some Italian sounding name. It was actually from Italy. And their product, I decided to have like a clear cellophane window on the front so you could see in and see what kind of pasta it was. And what I did was, for the visual, and this is the only time that I know of, I could be wrong, this is the only time I know of where a product on its package had an actual depiction of God, not Jesus, God. And it's from Michelangelo's painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, where God reaches out his finger and Adam's finger, it comes close, not quite touching in the painting. And that was like God giving birth to man. And I used that as the image on the package. And right below their fingers, where they almost touch, is where this oval of cellophane was, where you see the pasta. And, so it was, it's two naked men on the package. And it was, how could women resist that, right? It was mostly women who bought the food products in those days. So
Sure.
I wanted to have the slogan, let's see, what was it? Oh, I just wanted to say in quotes underneath, God, that's good pasta. But that was nixed at the last minute.
Oh, I would have loved that. Was it a successful campaign? I think it would have been really interesting.
They sold a lot of product. I wouldn't call it a campaign, but that's, they ended up selling a lot of product in supermarkets. Yeah.
Nice. God on pasta. So we go from God on pasta in Defying Gravity to which that line is, God, that's good pasta. God, that's good pasta. Sticks with me. How about the truth in advertising? The truth about truth in advertising. And we talked a little bit about how the ad game has changed.
Yes. Truth is something that there are a lot of ways to come at this, but truth is something that is not always something that happens in advertising. To some extent, it has to happen. There are organizations, government organizations, that oversee product. Like if you make a claim in a TV commercial that our brand tastes better than this brand. And you need to have, in order to say that and be legal, you need to have independent studies done that actually, taste tests that prove that people like the taste of your product better. So you can't just say anything you want in an ad or a TV commercial. But there is government oversight of that. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, advertisers say anything they want. Another way to see truth in advertising is what we called accepted premise. If you tell people a couple things about a product that they already know, they start nodding their heads. Yeah, in their mind, mentally nodding their heads. And then you add a third thing that they may not know about, but because you've got them nodding their heads and, okay, these people are telling me what I already know, that's the truth. And they accept the third thing that you throw in that may be a little questionable. And, one thing that comes to mind is, I think it was Jamaica, where in their ads they say, come to Jamaica, where the weather is warm. People know that. And so are the people. Well, the people may not be any different than any place else in the world, but it's accepted premise. You've told them one thing that they agree with, So the next thing that you say, okay, that must be true too. He's telling me a list of true things.
Wow, that's so interesting. And you can see if people are watching us, of course, and we're listening to this, because either way, you can probably think in your mind of some of those examples that you've seen in advertising. There's a lot of those.
Yeah. Volkswagen, a lot of people won't remember this, but way back when Volkswagen first came to, the United States back in the 60s, they talked about, there was one ad I remember, it was a print ad that said, it's ugly, but it gets you there. Well, they were kind of denigrating their own product, but it was okay because people could already see what it looked like. They make up their own mind. Well, that doesn't look too bad. So whether they thought it was good looking or not, you're not telling them anything they can't decide for themselves. It's not like how something tastes before they buy it. They can see what it looks like. And so when you've told them it's ugly, but it gets you there, it's like, okay, wow, they're telling me some bad things about their product, how ugly it looks. So all these other things they're telling me that, if they're telling me that, the truth about that, all the other things about low maintenance costs and how it never breaks down, those things must be true also. Yeah. So, it's kind of accepted premise.
Accepted premise. That's something to walk away with. All right. And if I didn't have a list, I would just be going off in all kinds of directions because I was like, I have to narrow it because we don't want to give everything away, all your secrets. But this was another one I liked. That one of the things that you pointed out in there was the 99-cent cigarettes. And I had a grandmother, because it was a different time. My great grandmother smoked, and I can remember we had a summer seashore house, and there would be these shells, and they would be filled with cigarette butts. And my grandmother was this petite, beautiful lady, and now people would be so aghast. But 99 cents, and it was the same thing that you said. They just told you this is the deal.
Yeah, well, when I first started in advertising back in the late 60s, I promised myself that I would never advertise cigarettes. Well, being an art director at an ad agency, if they have a cigarette account, you're working on it. You can't say, no, I refuse to do that. So to get around that, when it came time for me to do an ad for a brand of cigarettes, which is now gone by the wayside. I can't even remember what the brand was, in fact. But it was not for the cigarette itself, but it was for a line of convenience stores that we had as a client that had hundreds of stores in the New York City and Boston area. It was a very urban kind of store that was open all night, 24 hours a day. And the cigarette ad that I did, and the client actually liked this. In order to get around my saying, I'll never advertise cigarettes, the client let me do an ad that just was no, beautiful people sitting on the sands of a beach or palm trees around to lull you into a false sense of thinking, this is healthy product and, it makes you very popular, good looking. It was just a picture unadorned of just the package of cigarettes, and in huge type, bigger than the photograph of the product, it simply said, "Bad habit, great price."
I love that.
Habit, great price.
Right. And that bailed you out too, because it's a bad habit.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's perfect. So Defying Gravity, what do you hope people take away from reading this very funny, clever book?
A couple things. First of all, I hope they laugh. And I love short stories anyway. It's just like you said, you can spend 10 minutes reading one, put the book down, come back to it a week later if you want. But what I hope people take away from this is learning about just the crazy things that happened behind the scenes in advertising, things that people don't realize. For example, people think that supermarkets, for example, make their money selling products. well, they make a little money selling products, but you sell a can of Campbell's soup, which is one of the most popular items on the shelf in a supermarket. They don't make that much money on the product. They make the money by allowing that company, Campbell Soup Company, to show their product on their store shelves. It's like they're selling real estate. So this is called a slotting fee. That's where supermarkets make their money. And, it's things like that I'd like people to take away, things that they might not have ever realized otherwise, or crazy things that happen behind the scenes that people don't talk about.
They don't talk about. You're right. Well, this has been a delight as always. Next time around, we're going to talk about this book.
All right.
Controllables, travels, and then random acts of blindness too, as well, because this is your latest. And this is certainly one in the collection of many, many, many wonderful books that you have out there. So we'll do it again next time. David Random, where can people find you?
They can find me at authordavidrandom.com. All my books are on there.
DavidRandom.com. I like it. AuthorDavidRandom.com. How easy is that to remember?
David Random. I do have a website, DavidRandom.com, but that's mostly my rocket ships and the artwork that I do.
And we're going to talk about that again too in a future episode. So David, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Always a pleasure.